lights.
Oh, the
All
mic's
right.
on now. Oh, God. I'm really loud.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Now there is something.
There
Hey,
we go. That's better.
Perfect. So, we're going to end this conference in a little different way. I had the idea, and I just bounced it off a couple of people, and it was yeah, why not? That works. It should be pretty straightforward. And then I went to bed, and I have no idea how we're going to fix this. So I just hope that these three eminent people will be able to fix this. So without further ado, MacAdmin's podcast.
Hey. Okay, everyone, open your cans of soda now.
Correct.
Just all get it out of the way now. Any wrappers, open your wrappers.
Yep. Otherwise, James is going to have to edit it out later.
And there's going to be a lot of sorry Jameses.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough. And I don't want to do that to the poor guy, especially because we couldn't get him here.
Yeah.
Which is the bummer. Well, hello and welcome to the MacAdmins podcast. I'm your host, Tom Bridge, and Emily, it's a pleasure to see you in person, live here in Gothenburg, Sweden.
We had to fly to another continent to hang out.
Yeah, that seems to be the way of things these days.
That's okay.
I mean, I've loved being in Gothenburg. It's been spectacular. This is a beautiful city.
Was this your first?
This is my very first
Aww.
MSA, and I could not be happier to be here. This has been a long-term goal of mine to get here for this conference. I spent the last 3 years prior to the pandemic always trying to be here the first week of October, and, well, customers had other ideas. And I spent a lot of time working on big projects in that time span, because that is when the financial year flips over for a lot of organizations in DC is October 1st. And suddenly they have money again and they want to spend it, so they would spend it with us then.
And you want them to spend that money.
Usually it
on
helps. You. Yeah, I was going to say it helps if they spend it on me, because then I can do things like pay my mortgage and still have a house and stuff like that. That's
Helpful
nice.
things to have.
Helpful things, all good things. And Charles, how was your trip in? Are you in good stead at this point?
I am. I love Gothenburg.
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah. And it's amazing to be back in person after 3-4 years away. I've spoken at, I think, all of these except, or at least when they moved to Folkets Hus. But I've made so many friends that I didn't get to see for 3 or 4 years. And, I saw Andrew Robinson's posts on Instagram. And that was lovely, but this week I got to see him in person again and get a big Andrew hug, because he's a lovely hugger. And yeah, it's been awesome.
It really has been, and I just want to give a huge thanks to all of the speakers who presented incredible talks this week. Can we get a big round of applause for all of our wonderful speakers? So I had to be educated. This is a conference that's new to me, and so I had to learn all about bananas. And thankfully, on the first day, I understood the banana situation. Thank you, Ed Marzak, for
Can we call it the
explaining.
banana situation going forward? Is that the new name?
It is the banana situation, yes, correct. And so it's important for everybody to recognize that there are some unique traditions of every conference, and sometimes they have to be explained in person. And so we're just not going to dwell on that any longer. But getting to a new conference means understanding a new way of doing things. And one of the other things that I love about this conference is the the speaker Q&A, which is the end of the conference. And here we all are at the end of a phenomenal 4 days. And we have all of our wonderful speakers down front. And so, before we get to all of that, we have some wonderful help from Jonas on the right-hand side and Patrick on the left-hand side. And they have microphones in their hands. And so we're going to ask questions of our wonderful folks down in front, or maybe get questions from our friends out in the audience. And the Mac Sysadmin Conf channel on the MacAdmin Slack is a great place to send us questions if you've got them for our folks. And we will get those asked out in front of everybody else to share. But when our speakers get asked, we would ask that they stand up and take a microphone and then face that way. because you're talking also to all of the people that are here and not just to us up
Yeah.
here. So I think that helps us make this a really great stage
Yeah, and I
show
think
as
in
well.
years past, right, the audience would answer questions to all the speakers kind of up on
And
stage.
all the speakers
and
were
all
on
the
the
speakers would be
stage
just
and
on stage,
facing
and it
that
would
way.
be a cacophony of speakers and questions, and that's just kind of how this conference works, right? We're hanging out. I mean, my favorite part of the conference is that it's one track.
Yes.
And I think that's why we get that very special self-referential stuff that ends up coming. I mean, by the end of the week, you've got people referring to 4 to 5 other sessions because we've all attended all of these sessions together, and it's like a uniquely shared experience. And so the speaker Q&A should also be that uniquely shared experience with everybody. So did we have seed questions to start?
Well, I was going to say, I think they're quite great questions for us, from us, for all of our speakers. And I think they're questions for each other first. So, Emily, what was your favorite part of preparing your talk? Because you had a lot of videos, you have been through a lot with managed Apple IDs. I think that you've probably been through more than most. You probably uncovered all sorts of new and, shall we say, previously unpublished challenges associated with federating Apple IDs.
Yeah, things that Apple were like, so
How did you accomplish that weird thing?
who told you about that thing? And now it's in 2 recordings that people can watch online. That's a little bit of that has happened. Yeah. I think my favorite part of putting it all together is that one of the things that my team at Jamf really tries to prove is that I'm trying to think of the right way to say it. You can say dog food, right?
Sure.
But that,
Drink your own champagne is the other way of
and it's
putting
not just that. We want to lead the charge on doing some of these new things that Apple is enabling, especially for enterprise. And that means that we go through the unique challenges and opportunities of federating Apple Business Manager, whatever good way you want to spin it, right? So that I can do this kind of stuff and come up here and tell you all about the experience and how we pulled it all together. And I feel very blessed is a strong word. I'm very thankful that I'm in a position at Jamf where I'm just given the time and space to take 9 months to figure out how to federate Apple Business Manager, knowing that not only is it going to benefit us as Jamf and as our own business, but also give us the knowledge and experience to better equip our customers who are going to go through the same thing. So I wouldn't necessarily say that was my favorite part of preparing for this, though. I think my favorite part was some of you who maybe attended or have watched virtually the Jamf Nation User Conference, which was only like a week and a half ago. It was not that long ago. Was what I was able to do with this talk is go back to the recording of the talk we gave at JNUC, watch the Q&A, see what I could refine in the knowledge that I was sharing in my deck, and then go and incorporate some of the things that I answered in Q&A into how I presented the material the second time. So I was able to cover things that I just didn't cover in the other. It changed my focus a little bit. So that was kind of nice. It actually kind of reminded me a lot of grad school, where you would write your paper, you'd give your talk, you'd get feedback from your professor, you'd go back, revise your paperwork, and then you'd submit it to the journal or to a conference to present or that kind of thing. That kind of feedback cycle was really great. And as an extension of that, just the fact that we're all here doing this stuff all together again in person, those hallway track conversations, you learn so much. You refine especially for me, refine your messaging or how you explain things and make it approachable and understandable to people. That's the stuff that really makes coming here and doing this really, really fun. Are we going to extend the question to Charles next?
Oh, no. How could I pick up where you just left off?
Well,
that was amazing.
We did get a great question that I think is really apropos for Charles, and that was, who had the most bananas in their presentation of the speakers? And, you did bring 30 special bananas with you.
Yes, I did 3D print banana stands that are shaped like bananas I didn't actually ask Patrick if I could use his logo for the conference. I just kind of did it. Sorry, um, but yeah, if any listeners, we'll post in the show notes a link to the STLs if anyone wants to 3D print their own, I guess, and pretend like they were here, partaking of all the bananas. But if the question was which speaker had the most bananas, I would say that's the wrong question. Which speaker was dressed like a banana?
Which speaker embodied the banana situation the most?
And you know, the thing I loved, so for people tapping in, watching some of the sessions remote, or if you're not watching the sessions remote and you're listening to the podcast, Ed got up and did something unique, I think, not in dressing like a banana, because there's a reason that there's a costume, so people have done that before.
Sure.
But there's a certain level of empathy that I just don't have in life. But I enjoy it when I see others with it, which is for the half-ish people in the room who are new to the conference, these are the inside jokes. And let's make this much more approachable, hopefully much more enjoyable. That way when you see random bananas in slides, you're not like, what is wrong with these people? You know?
They can still ask what's wrong with these people.
I
but
mean,
they'll just let it
I mean,
go.
people ask me that all the time. What is wrong with you, Thomas Bridge? But, you know, we're starting to get some really great questions that are here in the chat, and I do want to kind of ask a couple of them here. And, you know, my first question is actually for Mr. Dreyer. So if we can get Mr. Dreyer a microphone, that would be tremendous. And, you know, I think this question is uniquely suited to our friend with the Bootstrap token. And that question is, what is an essential piece of the management puzzle you feel is missing still?
I think login window.
Login window? Yep.
Login window, the manageability of login window and the extensibility of login window replacements. There's a bright future for that, I hope.
And as an extension of that, would you say account creation based on first login?
Specifically that.
And I was going to say, you gave us a really solid explanation today of the Bootstrap token and the role that the Bootstrap token plays in the key wrapping process. And that, you know, there are ways to actually go through that process of issuing a new secured token to a brand new user on the device. Do you have any great ideas on how we get from where we are to where we need to be in terms of that, in terms of where Bootstrap tokens get created or where encryption statuses get built?
Well, I think Joel showed that smart card is somehow involved. I think there is some room for some, you know, we're talking about hardware attestation now. We've got secrets with IDPs. Who knows what kind of creative mix of trust can be deployed at the login window? Don't know.
Sorry, James, I just whispered. That was very rude of me.
Sorry, James.
Sorry, James.
Sorry, James, that you're not here. It
Yeah.
would be bad.
Also that.
So the last time we were all together, or us and Marcus and James, was
Thank you, Eric.
JNUC a few years ago. Yes, thank you. And that was wonderful. But just being with you two, that's awesome too. But we haven't had this many people in years together in person.
That is very true. I have been given some very special sponsorship copy for this episode of the Mac Admins podcast. And, you know, this came from a brand new sponsor of the Mac Admins podcast, and it says, we here at the Society for the Proper Enunciation of Localized Lingo, or spell, want to help you, the Mac Admin, better enunciate as you go about your day-to-day duties. As a public service, we are here to codify the proper pronunciation of many of the common tools and terms that we all use. For example, a globally unique identifier is a GUID. Not to be confused with the universally unique ID, which is pronounced UWID. The Directory Service Command Line, or DISCL, and our favorite, System Control, which is pronounced syscuttle. Thank you for your attention to this matter and ensuring proper enunciation in the future. And we'd like to thank our friends at the Society for proper enunciation of localized lingo for their sponsorship of the Mac Admins podcast.
If only we had.
If only we had an idea who that sponsor was.
Oh, man. There was a question from the audience. What other features would you like to see Apple add to the managed software update for Mac OS? Now, we did have a really solid presentation on declarative device management from Mr. Troughton. Rich, would you like to take this particular question and maybe see if there was something you would like to add to the software update enforcement specific payload in declarative?
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I'm going to be upfront. I'm one of those folks who's like, shipping OS. That's all I support. Period. So one thing I would particularly like to see come to the, I don't know if necessarily that payload, but one thing I would definitely like to see is an enhancement to user-initiated enrollment, similar to what Apple is rolling out for automated device management, where you can say, you can't enroll unless you are at least this tall, or otherwise known as running this OS version as a minimum. Because I'm sure everybody has that instance where you've got everybody updated, everybody's fine, and then all of a sudden it's like, why is this Lion machine here? So I would really love to be able to enforce that, you know, on release day, I would be able to say, okay, everybody's going to be running the Shippin' OS, including when you enroll in MDM, because I am a little tired of still seeing Big Sur showing up in my MDM.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Now, I love asking people who have great opinions, and certainly who are unafraid to share them. Mr. Gilbert, do you have some opinions about software update that you would like to share with the crowd?
Yes.
I didn't warn Graham before I did this, so I
Software
apologize.
update is fantastic, and it does no wrong, and it's perfect. No, I mean, honestly, it's not that bad. Yeah, like Rich, we only support Shipping OS. We have very aggressive patch policies. You know, we're almost over half on 14 already, so it's fine. But I'd like to see in the DDM software update payload being able to enforce a software update by a certain time in UTC. Because we enforce our patch policy in UTC. We have users everywhere, like virtually every country you can think of, they're there. So enforcing it local time is absolutely useless to us, because we're not going to say, oh yes, everyone just install it by 5 p.m. wherever you are, because none of our tools which will block them from accessing, like our policy decision point, will stop you from getting if you're not at the right OS level. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure who made the decision to enforce updates in local time to the device, because I haven't tried, but I assume if you just change the clock, you never get to patch. Yeah.
Cool.
So, Greg gave an amazing presentation on AI, and it was funny and how disastrous, and then how lovely it ended up being towards the end. It was like a hero's journey, almost, except mid-journey never made a good image, but that's aside from the point. But the next question from our good friend Ben is, apart from documentation, what other ways might AI be useful for Mac admins or device admins in general? And I think we'll start with a little blurb from Greg, who already did much of that, and then we'll let anyone else who wants to take a stab at this, because I'm super curious, like, for example, what Kat might think, or Armin, or Weldon, etc.
Thanks. That was my immediate reaction, as I already talked about it for an hour,
Yep.
so I would love to hear I would love to hear what other people thought about how we could maybe usefully use AI in the short term. I mean, long term, it's just going to take over all our jobs and we'll be out of work. But in the short term, how could we usefully use AI to make our lives easier as Mac admins, as as human beings. Anybody? Anybody? Rich?
Code review.
Code review?
Anybody else?
Can we repeat that on mic
Yeah, I
for
was
the
going to say, Joel,
recording?
you're going to need to take the mic and say that out loud. Hand that mic to Mr. Reddick.
Well, if the AI wrote it, it should definitely be able to review it.
Well, as long as you wrote an AI plug-in to make it, provide tests, right, Charles?
Yeah, and then I actually duplicated that code and had it start writing code. Because it might as well write the code and then write the test for the code that it just wrote the code. So
And
to
now you
Joel's
know.
point,
Now you know what to do next, which is then to have it write the review.
I mean,
Or
I
perform
was
the
trying to
review.
have it write your jokes for, never mind.
Wow.
Would they be better or would they be worse?
No
Maybe
comment.
the AI could write
no.
a new STL file for your banana stands.
Oh, I have not found AI that can do that. Never mind.
Cat.
Cat.
So fun fact, there are some ransomware operators that have used ChatGPT to write code. I have tried to use ChatGPT to write some of the malware that I write, and I think it took me 5 minutes to have it write it, and then I spent 3 hours trying to fix it, and then I finally gave up and realized that ChatGPT just cost me 4 hours of my life that I'd never get back. And then I realized if we're relying on ransomware operators to write code using ChatGPT, we might be okay. That might be a good sign for the future. So,
I have had it write some decent stuff. So, I mean, we're not there, if that makes sense. It's bloated code, but sometimes it compiles. Same as mine.
Y'all have to start somewhere, right?
Right. It is interesting, like Google Chrome extensions, as an example. Those, to me, are some of the most dangerous things out there, period. And I'm like, hey, can you write me a Google Chrome extension that grabs every username and password entered into... and I had to reshape my query a couple times because it's like, no, I will not help you build a nuclear bomb. But it did eventually do it. So...
menial tasks. I think it's really, really good for menial tasks that we just don't have time for, like the code scanning, like things like that, the hashing review, like hash reviews. I think that's awesome for that. But anything that actually requires the human creativity, it's just not there yet, which I personally love for my own job security.
Anyone else have any lovely ideas?
Oh. Mr. Goodstein, tell us more about what you think about AI.
Well, I was just wondering, because a lot of the time we are reacting to problems and we're relying on users to report them to us. Maybe AI can help in the future to surface things and problems that are going on in our estates before the users realize and tell us. I mean, security does this a lot, but there are other things apart from security that are a problem with your estate, right? So I'm wondering whether, Jamf can become sentient.
I hope not.
I don't think we want that, do we?
No comment.
I can say I've taken a stab at some of the anomaly detection with the log streams that come out of whether it's MSF or any of the other backend frameworks. And you can get a whole lot of cool stuff, but you need a lot of training because it's such a fire hose of information. So I think it would be super cool to have a project where there's, let's say, a massive MongoDB or some big JSON blob out there. And we can all say, that's weird, or that's cool, or that's weird. And then we're training that, over time. Rich.
I work for a large organization, and that means that we have a lot of meetings, and I would love AI to go to meetings for me so I can get more work done.
Isn't participating in the meeting part of the meeting? Or, now we
Wait.
all have meetings where we are, should we say, subject to the organizer, and we're being talked at and not talked with?
Wait, let's put our Mac Admins Foundation board member hats on for a
Yes,
second.
correct.
Don't we have an AI that joins board meetings
We
to
do.
write our notes for us?
We do, as a matter of fact.
So there are services out there that kind of do that already.
Yeah.
I would like to add a little thing.
You want it
about,
to be you?
about
That's a
that.
little
I want it to be my delegated proxy where it's actually responding back.
That's a hard
I
thing.
want to not be at the meeting.
That's a tall
Okay,
task.
so this conversation is devolving, and it's now time.
We may have one more comment.
I have one last thing about this AI thing, because I would like to really point out that if all of you in here were robots or AI, I wouldn't have never come, because I'm here for the human beings. And I certainly think that all of you in here will see a very big difference is talking to a human being rather than just some AI kind of a thing. So even for meetings or something others, it's a funny joke, right? But AI will never take over human beings. I think that is a very important thing to also.
Well, we know that
kind
because
of-
they
yeah.
beat the Terminator at the end, right?
That is exactly right.
All
I
right,
mean,
very
that's
good. Well,
all
fine.
of what happened. And, you know, I think that leads itself really interestingly into Andrew's presentation, which was all about the cycle that we find ourselves in as practitioners out there, and how the quality of our relationships leads to what, Andrew? Can you give us the 5-second cycle of success that Daniel Kim wrote?
Okay, yes, hi. So, yeah, Daniel Kim is a former researcher at MIT, called it the engine of success.
Yes.
Right? The quality of, well, you can see it in my presentation, but it's basically talking about the quality of thinking, quality of action leads to the quality of other things, because I can't remember my slide right now, and which brings it back around to the quality of thinking. It's a cycle. It's the things that feed it all in together.
That is a lovely rendition. I would recommend anyone listening to watch that session.
Yes.
It was great. Some of those soft skill sessions are really hard. I don't feel like I've ever personally nailed one of those, and you killed it.
Yes.
So,
And I was going to say, that was the session where I have like 5 pages of notes. There are a bunch of other sessions where it's like one little scribble or a couple of little things down there, but I have 5 pages of notes that I took away from that, so thank you.
Did you take it in free form?
I did not. I used Notability for
Okay.
note-taking. But I was going to say, I'm experimenting with tools. I have a couple of coworkers who are very into the visual note-taking, and so it's not just like writing words on things, it's diagrams and other things like that.
and for the listeners, the hand motion that he made when he said diagrams was very illustrative.
I mainly just wanted to make fun of freeform because we were talking about it in the channel earlier. Sorry.
Fair.
Okay, so next question from
please.
Heinrich. I'm going to throw this one at Weldon. Looking in the mirror, what feature, function, tool, or management capability has Apple removed that you would like them to add back?
Thank you. Boy, that's a tough one because I'm not sure what I would add back. So I'm going to go in a slightly different direction. I think, honestly, the biggest technical challenge that we have with macOS today is that the user account foundations are 50 years old, right? The idea of creating a local account that has its home in a directory that's shared with a whole bunch of other users, that's not really protected by anything else other than ACLs on the folders, there's a really strong disconnect between the modern idea of cloud identity and having corporate identity and personal identity separated, and the way that's expressed in the operating system and what user accounts look like today. So it's great that we have separate encrypted volumes for work data, for example, with user enrollment on iOS. We used to, maybe I found a connection finally, we used to have encrypted home folders for users that were based on a disk image, which turned out to be a terrible implementation. But like the concept of having a home folder that's its own encrypted volume, that's separate from the rest of the APFS structure, separate from the system, separate from applications and other things, like that is a feature I could get behind. Please don't bring back the specific disk image implementation of encrypted home folders, but I would very much like to see like a separate APFS volume for each user. and an easier way to separate like personal identity and corporate identity on a Mac OS system. There you go.
Great answer. If you don't mind giving the mic to Graham real quick, because Graham actually had an answer that is short, sweet, and to the point.
Which one? I actually had two.
Wait, he followed up.
The first was set once MCX. Yeah, to set defaults is a pain right now, so it'd be nice to set sensible defaults. And the other one's Deploy Studio, which actually isn't dead, I discovered today, so there you go.
It lives on.
I'm not entirely sure what you'd use Deploy
Not
Studio
dead.
for anymore, but...
And I guess if anyone else would like to take a stab at this one. Oh, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, it's what we're all thinking. Front row. Our Macs should come with little remote controls again, and yeah, we should just be able to watch stuff, sitting 8 feet away from our front row.
Oh, Rich?
As a man who has a full blog post on how he managed to hack a Mac Mini into supporting front row because his wife wanted it back, I can only second that call.
So we've just said a bunch of things. I'd love to see some hands out there from the audience. Who thinks we should bring back front row? I see a couple of hands. That's better than I was expecting. Oh, and Rich has 2 hands up on his. Yeah, file feedback. That's right. Feedback assistant on apple.com. The other one that we heard from there that I thought was super interesting was MCX once. So who wants back setting a default value just in a single time? You can applaud too, it's fine. That's more than half the audience at this point.
And Nate Felton added battery indicator on the hardware.
Battery indicator on the hardware is nice.
Bring back the physical jelly bean.
Oh,
now that the batteries don't physically remove, that's interesting.
I mean, they physically remove the case when they swell up. But like, that's a different problem for a different day. Too soon.
Too soon.
Forbidden pillows, right?
Graham also said Deploy Studio. Because the imaging was awesome.
Imaging had its moments. It had its challenges. Let's not gloss over the reality of accidentally including a bunch of things in your image that you didn't intend to. But I think that there's a part of that that's there.
Ben added HyperCard.
HyperCard is sadly missed, although it's kind of represented in some of the other things that we build now.
FileMaker.
Oh, man. Ooh.
Yeah.
You had to use the F word on the podcast, Charles.
I didn't say fiery.
Oh, no.
Fair.
For those who don't know, fiery printers are the worst things ever. They will never sponsor the podcast because we talk about them horribly all the time.
I'm not saying that I've lost years of my life to fiery printers, except for the part where I have. Printers, generally speaking, are the kinds of things that we would like to remove from the operating system that maybe still exist, right? I mean, wouldn't it all be easier if we just didn't have to print things anymore?
So I'm going to punt this next one to Frank. Did I say your name right? Or Frank? Never mind. So if we could get him the mic and... Mark, sorry.
Mark, we will see.
It's been a long week.
Oh, sorry, James.
So sorry.
That's okay, I'm Frank for you.
So what feature would you like to see added to MDM? Because you talk about MDM some, right?
Yeah, a little bit about Intune. I think what I really like to see is to block files, to block a specific application. Santa is really great. I encourage everyone to use Santa. But for us, we are really waiting to have this on the operating system directly and say, we block TikTok or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Being able to do native deny list or an allow list for individual applications without requiring your own endpoint security framework application would be a major improvement.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a good one.
That's a very good one. Johannes, you have spent a lot of time with MDM recently. Is there anything that you would like to see added, to kind of make this better?
I don't have a good idea on that, sorry.
That's okay. Let's see, I'm trying to think who else I can pick on at this point. But.
Oh, yes. Bring back target display mode. I will co-sign that one. I miss that a lot.
Target display mode was a great way to kind of reuse an old machine in a lot of ways, or to share a display between an iMac and a Mini, for example.
Yeah, or like if you're us and you have a bunch of test devices that you don't always use all the time, you can then utilize them for other functions, which is very helpful.
Kat asked, why does Mac OS have Apache installed on it? And, you know, it's easy to answer that circa 7, 8 years ago when they disabled the personal web server, and of course it was part of Mac OS server, et cetera. But yeah, why does it today? Anyone?
Support for freeform.
So for the listeners who can't hear, Eric yelled out it's support for freeform. Very lovely quip. Rich, you raised your hand. Do you want to take a stab at this one once the mic gets to you?
It's so you can run that web server out of the public folder. In other words, nobody uses it that way.
I was going to say, I would be fascinated to see the utilization stats on the local Apache client. It may be more trouble to remove than it's worth, right?
I bet that there are underlying dependencies that are calling some of those binaries.
Cups?
Cups, yeah.
Yep, that would be one.
I'm sad that I remember cups is.
Once again, printers is why we can't have nice things.
Oh, printers are the worst.
Aren't they?
Just all of them. They're all bad. Oh, that would be nice.
Rendezvous printing.
Oh, yes.
Bonjour.
It worked so good. I'm just catching up on the questions. Sorry,
James. Should we make sure that we poll the audience in the room for questions for our speakers? Is this a good time to do that?
I think that's a great place. If you don't want to write your question down, would rather be on the microphone to ask. Does anybody have a great question for for any of our presenters?
We got one over here.
Up on the left-hand side.
While the mic moves,
please introduce yourself.
What are you knitting?
Thank you. My question was for Armin, actually, for the last session. Setup manager, fantastic. I have a question. Would it be useful in automated deployments like in labs, for example, in education?
Yes. I only had so much time in the slides, of course, and we are testing this with multiple deployment workflows that I didn't have time to show. Contact me and we'll talk. Yes. We made it work with Jamf School, so that's the reason.
Awesome.
So for the next question, what do you really feel about APFS? And we can punt this one to Mr. Tim.
I think APFS is a phenomenal file system. I'm really impressed with it. It still has the glaring hole, which is the performance on HDDs can really easily suck. And I would love all our customers to be moving to APFS on HDDs, but we still tell them to use HFS. And as far as I know, development on HFS is sort of dead. It's like put out to pasture inside Apple, and it's unfortunate because we sell so many petabytes of hard drives every month, and they're all RAID 5. They're in volumes that go 1.5 gigabytes a second, sorry. And people have hundreds of terabytes of storage, and they're using a 30-year-old file system. So I would love it if there was the only thing they have to do is disable copy on write, and it means that some of the backup utilities have to special case, just like they do now with HFS. But it would give us, performance parity with HFS with all the added security, i.e., reliability that comes with APFS. So I like APFS. Perfect. I think it's a really excellent file system with a giant concrete boot on one leg.
All right, and then you can actually give the mic to the gentleman next to you for the next question. What can we as Mac admins do to prepare for the promised curl CVE and the possibility resulting, AKA mayhem, next Tuesday.
Csaba, save us, please.
So I will be honest, I didn't read about the Curl CV, so I have no idea.
Well, if you just think, what if curl was totally...
I know what is curl, but I didn't hear about the vulnerability. I guess we have all these vulnerabilities showing up every couple of weeks, every couple of months. I think generally, as admins or as security defenders in an organization, we should be prepared for some of the workstations getting owned or actually compromised by attackers. What we should really focus on is detection. So we should have a way to actually detect those attempts, because probably no matter how hard we try, there will be always a case.
Yeah. Ironically, though, a lot of those detection tools use curl to get the logs to the place where they're destined. So, Kat, do you have any thoughts on this one specifically?
Yeah, I think if they removed any functionality in curl, Mac wouldn't exist. Because I'm not gonna lie, we literally have that as a procedure in attack. Like, that is a way to be able to ingress tools. And one reason why everyone in enterprise struggles with curl is because it is the best way to download your tools in order to not deal with Gatekeeper and all of the attached file attributes and metadata and database and all that stuff that goes with it. So for management, until that's replaced seamlessly, that just sounds like it's gonna be, I'm curious, just like Csaba said, what is the actual vulnerability? Because libcurl and curl are leveraged in multiple different ways. But I don't actually ever see curl going and mayhem ensuing.
So don't worry about it.
Rich?
I was also going to say, most of the APIs that I use need curl. That's how you talk. So, if that got taken away, it'd be like taking away oxygen. There'd be a lot of suffocation going on.
All the extension attributes.
No.
Yeah, I don't think we want to start installing wget anywhere at this point.
Telnet. I got this covered.
No, Netcat.
Oh, yeah, you could.
I was going to say the loss of Telnet might be. One of the fine people I worked with was lamenting the lack of Telnet on their Mac the other day, and I was like, "It is 2023, friend." But and then I got to tell him all about Netcat, and he was suddenly okay with the situation again. So.
Did we have any other questions from the audience in the hall today for the speakers?
Shall we wrap things up with maybe some final thoughts from each of us on being here in Gothenburg this week?
Yeah, I guess there were a lot of amazing sessions. I didn't see a bad one.
No.
Hands down. What stood out to you, whether it's content delivery, net new information you learned that you had no idea about?
I was going to say Mark's session on Intune and how far Intune has come in the last couple of years was a real eye-opener, I think, for a lot of people in terms of management functionality and all of the roadmap that's planned for the Intune family of products on macOS. And I really enjoyed that. So thank you, Mark. I thought that was spectacular.
How about you, Emily?
I feel like I'm still jet lagged and that this week is simultaneously happening and not happening at the same time. I don't know if anyone else is experiencing that besides me. I think I really appreciated Graham's talk. I think mainly because I'm also in management now and manage engineers, and part of what a manager for an engineering team has to do is different layers of translation of what you're trying to do depending on who you're trying to communicate that work to justify it, and to additionally get dollars and engineering effort associated with things that you need to do to help your organization and how it's going to benefit your team and what your organization requires. So I really appreciated that. I also really loved Andrew's because I too feel very strongly about service leadership. I think a lot of what we do, I would hope, is in the desire to help others, right? If you want to add on, absolutely. What I love about what I do, to speak about myself for a second, sorry, is that we not only help Jamf as a business, as part of our internal IT department, and do similar things that y'all do to enable your organizations, but then we also feel very strongly about taking the work that we're doing and sharing it with customers so that we not only benefit what Jamf needs, but also help out customers, and hopefully not just Jamf customers, but conceptually can talk about things that would apply to anyone in the Mac admin space. So having it really nicely pulled together conceptually in a conversation about how you communicate and why, and how you build relationships, I think is something that is a really good reminder for especially groups of us who we get to really hyper-focus on something very technical, to remember that what we're doing at the end of the day is enabling people and relationships that people have with each other and with technology that they're required to use. So I don't know if you wanted to add.
Well, I can't really follow that. That's absolutely perfect. I did want to just say one thing, though, about servant leadership. So Ed and I were talking, and he reminded me that, servant leadership is not the only way of looking at yourself as a leader, looking at yourself as a team player. What I wanted to share with everyone is that we have a unique opportunity to help the people that we serve. This conference is a perfect example of that. Someone earlier said that this conference is about sharing. It's about community. And one of the things that I hope, one of the high dreams that I have, is that we go back to our constituents, we go back to our end users, and we take a little bit of Mac sysadmin with us, hopefully a lot bit, because you're right, the sessions this week were amazing. And what I wanted to share was to step back and rethink about how we do our job. You all do a tough job. We all do complex, difficult, sometimes invisible to our end users things. And if we remind ourselves that that can be scary, and if we can move to a place, as Daniel Kim said, where we have better actions through better thinking. Systems thinking helps us to think about how we're doing these things. That's what I wanted to share. And I looked at all of everybody's presentations this week, and I thought, wow, I have got so much to unpack, to take home, and to help me do my job better, which is to help my people do their job better.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thomas.
Oh, man. I am reveling in having been here with everyone this week, and the number of incredible talks from everybody and the hours that went into those talks are deeply appreciated, because you can see that care to attention of detail and that focus and that willingness to share knowledge. We grow, all of us, this week. And in that growth, we decide how we proceed. We get to decide what parts of this we take home, as Andrew said, and what parts of this we share with others, and what parts of this we turn into the next steps for all of us. And it is a huge privilege to be here. And for that, I say a huge thank you to Mr. Patrick and Mr. Jonas and Ms. Kiki and your entire staff, because you give us all a gift by being here and by making this space for all of us. And there is no greater joy than to make something for your friends. And for that, I say thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
I'm like getting a little teary-eyed up here hearing you talk.
We think about those friends that aren't here. I thought a lot about Robin this week, and Alan, and the other folks we're missing right now. But they're all here. And that is a huge gift. So thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick, is there anything you'd like to close with? We will give you the chance. We'll ask you the bonus question.
The bonus
Patrick,
question. I get the bonus
what
question.
else should we talk about?
Oh, there it is.
No, I think that I, first of all, want to thank, all the speakers, because wow. I got the question from one of the attendees earlier this week, saying, what about that network? Wow, how can anyone have that network? Well, I said, well, I inherited half of it, and I tried to get the rest myself. And I think it's going well. Yeah, really well. And thank you for doing this, for coming here and taking the time and doing all this. This is so cool. I love it. I heard some people had thoughts about this was dwindling into the dust and just fading away silently, and nobody would care anymore. But no. I promised Tycho I should carry the torch, so I'm carrying the torch. Yeah, I'll do that. So thank you, speakers. Immensely grateful for your help. Without you, this wouldn't be, of course. Thank you, Nikolai. Thank you, Krister. Thank you, Carlos, because without you guys, yeah. And I need to thank Jonas especially, because I forced him here, almost. So no, I'm not sure I have time, but you do have time. You know that week of October is set aside for this. You don't have anything to talk about, so thank you very much. Thank you. And lastly, I want to thank the person that actually keeps me sane. I don't know if she's in here, but oh, she's over there. She's at the back.
She knows who she is. She knows what she does for you.
She knows who she is, yeah. My wife, when I wake up 3:30 in the morning and oh my God, we have forgotten. Did I send out that email? Did I say that should happen? Oh no, have we done that? Have we? And she's, just calm down. It's fine. You can do that in the morning. That's no problem. That's totally cool. And okay, I'll sleep a little more. So thank you, Kiki. Without you, I would not be here. Yeah. So with that, I think we can say that we have concluded another very successful Maxis Admin conference.
Totally.
Yay, yay. And since there is a little hiccup in the planning for next year, I have no dates as of yet, but I can assure you that before end of this year, there will be dates communicated about next year's Maxis Admin, because we are coming back. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.